Hello, my name is Charles Carter. I'm adjunct faculty at East Tennessee State University with the foreign language. Hola, me llamo Profesor Carter y today we're going to look at 5 short items. The first one is expressing possession, and it's located on page 77 in your text. In English, we have 2 ways that we can express possession. We can use possessive adjectives, or we can use an apostrophe S. In Espanol, what we're going to look at today is how we use possessive adjectives to express possession. Now, in English, we use my, your, his or her, our, your, and their. This is first, second, third person singular, first, second, third person plural. In Spanish, our possessives are mi, tú, su, nuestro, or the feminine version that ends in a, nuestra. Then we have vuestro, and the feminine version, vuestra. And third person plural, su. Possessive adjectives in Spanish must agree with the noun that they modify. If I'm talking about reading a book, yo leo mi libro. It simply states, I read my book. But what if I'm reading more than one book? I myself oftentimes will have 2 or 3 books going at the same time. I would state, yo leo mis libros, because the noun is plural. My possessive adjective must also be plural. Where the noun is singular, the possessive adjective is also singular. Let's go through these. Repitan. Mi, tú, su, nuestro, nuestra, vuestro, vuestra, su. To make any one of these plural, all we have to do is add an S. Now, if you will look on page 77, you also see under section A how the possessive adjectives agree with a plural subject, and the S has been added in red. Now let's look at first person plural and second person plural. Notice that these 2 have masculine and feminine forms. Not only do they need to agree with the noun they modify in number, they must also agree in gender. Let me give you a quick example. Nosotros leemos nuestro libro. We read our book. Now the noun is masculine and singular. The possessive is also masculine and singular. If I were to say we read our books and make this plural, I would also have to make the possessive plural. A second thing to consider about second person plural. If you will turn to the top of page 78, look at section C. It simply states that vuestro, vuestra, and the plural forms are used extensively in Spain, but are not common in Latin America. Now in Latin America, if you were to use vuestro and vuestra, anyone would understand exactly what it is you're saying. And if you go to Spain and don't use vuestro or vuestra, likewise you would be understood. It is simply the fact that in Spain, for your alls, they use this. And in Latin America, for your alls, your plural, they use su. In Spain, they would say vosotros, leéis vuestro libro. You all read your book. In Latin America, they would state ustedes leen su libro. Both of these statements refer to the plural you, to you all. Spain, Latin America. You can go over page 78, activities A, B, and the top of page 79, activity C, for further review with possessive adjectives. Now let's move on to the next item. We're going to be looking at ER and IR verbs. Now you have already covered AR verbs in the present tense. On page 80 and 81, we have a presentation of ER and IR verbs. As a reference, I'm going to put down the AR verb endings. Now, I'm going to put ER and IR. You'll find this at the top of page 81 in the first yellow box. And now IR verbs. Notice that ER and IR verb endings are very similar. The only place they are different are in the nosotros and vosotros form. First, second, and third person singular and third person plural have the same endings. Notice the similarity in pattern all the way across. Now, every regular ER verb in the present tense in the Spanish language will use this pattern. Every regular IR verb in the present tense will use this pattern. So if you learn how to conjugate just one ER verb or one IR verb, then you should be able to do any verb that you are given. In the second yellow box, at the top of page 81, we have a number of ER and IR verbs listed. We're going to take one verb and conjugate it. We'll use the verb beber. Beber means to drink. Now, what's the first step that we need to take in order to conjugate the verb? We always drop the infinitive ending, which leaves us the stem of BED. One more. Now all we need to do is add our regular endings. O, es, hemos, es, en. Repitan: bebo, bebes, bebe, bebemos, bebéis, beben. Any of the ER verbs that are listed here, or any other regular ER verb that you come across, all we have to do is drop the ER and attach these endings. We also have listed 5 IR verbs. The exact same thing will be done with them. In order to conjugate them in the present tense, simply drop the IR and then put the appropriate endings. O, es, imos, is, and en. Okay. To further review this, you can go to page 82 and do activities A, and then page 83, activity B and C. The next thing we want to look at is the use and omission of subject pronouns. I'll be leaving these verb endings up here so that it'll help us. You will find this at the top of page 82. Now let me put the subject pronouns up on the board. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros o nosotras, vosotros o vosotras, ellos, ellas, ustedes. As you can see, each subject has a different verb ending. If I were to say, yo bebo leche, it's very clear as to who is drinking milk. I drink milk. But if I remove the yo, is it still clear as to who drinks the milk? There is no other ER verb ending that ends in O. Only yo ends in O. So it is understood that this says I drink milk. So we can omit subject pronouns. The one time, or the two times that we want to be clear as to who the subject is using third person singular and third person plural. Let me give you an example. If I say, él bebe leche, it should be clear that he drinks milk. But what if I remove the él? The only thing that we know now is that some third person singular is drinking milk, but we're not sure who. So the best thing to do with third person singular and third person plural, because each one has 3 different subjects that share the verb ending, the best thing to do is to include the subject pronoun every time. If you look at page 82, at the top of the page, there are 3 little red boxes, and they simply state that verb-object pronouns are going to be used for clarification, for emphasis, and for contrast. In the case of third person singular and third person plural, we want to include the subject pronoun for clarification. If the subject pronoun is not there, then we don't know exactly which of the subjects is affecting the verb. We can also use subjects and subject pronouns to emphasize. In English, we often emphasize with our voice inflection. And then we can use it to contrast. Particularly when we're talking about different individuals or groups, we want to contrast one against the other. Then we want to include subject pronouns for that. You have the examples to the right of those 3 little red boxes. To review this, you can look at the top of page 83 and go over activities B and C. The next item we want to look at is the nota comunicativa that we have at the bottom of page 84. We have 6 vocabulary words and or phrases here that we will use to talk about how frequently one does something. Let's look at the words as they appear there. Repitan, todos los días, and siempre. They refer to every day and always. The next one, repitan, con frecuencia. It's frequently. A veces, at times, or sometimes. On the right side, una vez a la semana, once a week. Casi nunca, almost never. Or just plain nunca, never. There is another word that is not included here that is a synonym of nunca, which is jamás. J-A-M-A with an accent, S. You may run across it in your readings and studies. If you look at the examples at the bottom of the box, the first sentence says, hablo con mis amigos todos los días. Hablo con mis padres una vez a la semana. Casi nunca hablo con mis abuelos. Y nunca hablo con mis tíos que viven en Italia. So here we have someone talking about when they communicate with their friends, their parents, their grandparents, and the uncles that live way off in Italy. With the friends, they communicate every day. With the parents, once a week. With their grandparents, almost never. And they never talk to their aunts and uncles that live in Italy. Okay, to review this, look at the top of page 85. In activity A, how frequently do you do these things? There are 10 things listed. From going to a lab, to writing a poem, to attending class. And over to the right, it has con frecuencia, frequently, a veces, sometimes, casi nunca, almost never, and nunca, never. Go through the list and then check off the appropriate box as to how frequently you do these things. Now, the last thing we want to go over are tag phrases, and we'll find that on page 100 in your text. Right in the middle of the page, another purple box, a nota comunicativa. A tag phrase is simply a single word in some instances that we can attach to the end of a statement, turning it into a question. The two most common ways of doing this are using the word no and verdad. The first example that you have is aquí venden de todo. Simply stated, it says here they sell everything. Now, we can take this and add one of two words. We can put a comma, inverted question mark, and say, no. Now what it says, here they sell everything, don't they? Or we could put verdad. Here they sell everything, right? Now notice, the inverted question mark is in front of the tag-on word or the tag-on phrase. That's where the question begins. We do not put the question mark at the beginning of the sentence. If you look at the bottom of the box, it says verdad is found after affirmative or negative statements. No is usually found after affirmative statements only. And remember that the inverted question mark comes immediately before the tag question and not at the beginning of the statement. So if you'll go over activity D below that box, you can review the tag phrases and tag words.